If you're a casual metal fan, this album might make your head explode. Allegaeon's The Ossuary Lens isn't just heavy, it features complex rhythms, sci-fi themes, and mind-bending technicality. It's death metal for the thinking metalhead. And today, I'm going to talk about why it's one of the most intense releases of the year. Allegaeon has a very unique style which evolved throughout their career. This band brings in lots of different influences, but their core sound is techno death metal and melodic death metal. In the beginning, the band played lots of shredding guitar solos, complex rhythms, and their lyrics were very philosophical, which is something I always like to hear, as there are too many bands out there still singing about the devil. But the music is filled with lots of intense guitar riffs and blast beats, but they later incorporated some thrash metal and a little bit of groove. The band features two guitar players who are Greg Burgess and Michael Stanchel, and they provide both melodic and shredding leads. The new album features Jeff Saltzman on drums, and he plays lots of blast beats, but also some groovy rhythms, and the bass guitar is audible. In addition, over the years, the band has incorporated clean vocals into the songs on this new album called The Ossuary Lens. They have original vocalist Ezra Haynes, who does both the harsh and clean vocals. The previous vocalist was Riley McShane, and he left in 2022, so that's when the band recruited their original vocalist. As for the sound of the band, they've been moving towards more of a progressive death metal sound that began mostly on their 2022 album called Damnum. But this new album still has elements of progressive metal, but also songs that are going back to their older sound, which is a hybrid of melodic death metal and technical death metal. In addition, this new album has lots of different stuff going on, and I'll be talking about all of that. Let me talk about some of the lyrics that this band writes about. A lot of them are very scientific, and like I said, I like when bands write lyrics about different topics instead of the same topics many metal bands use over and over. This band talks about things like the theory of evolution, the probability of alien life in the universe, stem cell research, and artificial intelligence, and those are all things that I'm interested in. So that was one aspect I liked about this band. For example, there's one song called Dark Matter Dynamics. It's a song that includes references to black holes, axion particles, and the unseen forces shaping our universe. This song paints dark matter as this ghost that haunts the fabric of space-time. The song can be considered both a tribute to science and a reflection on the mysteries of life, things we may never fully understand. I want to talk more about how the band incorporates clean vocals and softer guitars on the new album. For example, out of all the songs, I only heard clean vocals on 3 of them, and I'll be going through all the tracks in a minute. But for example, there was a song called Driftwood, which features clean vocals by Ezra Hayes, who has a style similar to Devin Townsend, and a few other songs had more clean vocals towards the end of the album, which was Wake Circling Above, and the closing track Scythe, which reminded me of the band Opeth, and I'll talk more about that later on. There are also a lot of softer guitars used on the album as opposed to the distorted death metal guitars, and probably about half of the songs on the album feature these shorter or cleaner guitars, including an instrumental that opens the album, and another one with a guest musician who plays this acoustic intro. Another song, I'll be talking about that more, and there's some more Spanish guitar. And I'll mention all that, but let me go through the tracks. The album opens with a short instrumental called Refraction. It's just acoustic guitars, and to me it sounded like some Spanish guitar. It goes into a song, Chaos Theory, which features some technical guitar riffing and more complex arrangements. The vocals are in a low death metal style. The song also mixes genres of extreme metal with elements of black metal and death metal. The drumming was very intense with lots of blast beats. I also found they were not only going for speed and technicality, they also incorporated different elements into the song. For example, some of the slower melodies were reminiscent of neoclassical metal and progressive metal. The song also goes into double-time gallop before it finds its groove. This goes into a song called Driftwood, and that takes a big turn with a jazzy intro, but then it progresses into some tech death. The song continues to develop into a very brutal song with harsh vocals and blast beats. This is also the first song with some clean and almost operatic vocals that alternate between the harsh ones with some virtuoso style guitar playing. The song also becomes a little thrashy, and let me reiterate that the chorus has some great clean vocals by Ezra Haynes, who has a solid clean vocal delivery. Next song is called Dice Irae, and the song continues with a unique brand of extreme metal, but it was also very chaotic, much more complexity. Another song with a lot of speed included tremolo pick guitar riffs, Then this immediately brought in some shredding guitars and blast beats. This was in addition to some of those thrash metal style rhythms. There were some gallops, and if you know me, I'm a big fan of galloping guitars. There are a few different harsh vocal styles used, and despite the chaos, you can make out the chorus where they repeat the name of the song. Then there was a song called The Swarm. This is one of those songs that shows off the twin guitar of Michael Stanchel and Greg Burgess. The drumming by Jeff Saltzman is intense as always. And I found the song had some interesting and weird guitar parts, but that's all part of the complex nature of what this band gives you. The song also has some of those things that are very common in all genres of metal music, such as machine gun riffs and some chugging. The opening riff sounded very chaotic. It sounded like classical music, but it was sped up. The song also features lots of blast beats and complex guitar riffing, and you can hear some of those deathcore pig squeals, and that just goes to show you this band knows no bounds when it comes to metal genres. If you want to become a member of the channel, for 99 cents, you get early access to all my videos, and for $2.99, not only you get early access, but you can request album reviews. There's a join button below, link in the video description. After this was a song Carried by Delusion. I haven't really talked much about the bass playing of Brandon Michael. On this track, he shows you that his bass playing can be very precise. It's one of the more memorable and complex songs that's filled with awesome guitar work, both in terms of the solos and the riffs. The intro features soft guitar passages that alternated with extreme riffing. Still a very heavy song with extreme death metal vocals. Although the pace slows down at some points, there are still plenty of blast beats. The sound of this track was very dense, but towards the end of the song, the softer clean guitar sections are brought back, and that gives you a break from the chaos. If you remember, I hinted there was a special guest on the album. He appears on the song Dark Matter Dynamics. This features the instrumental guitar playing of Adrian Bellew. The song features some classical guitar playing, and they take this melody and they transform it in a way it becomes part of the band's signature death metal sound. The song also features some soaring melodies and blast beats and some chunkier guitar riffs. There are occasionally some harmonized solos. There's also another acoustic and bass melody. And at about 3.5 minutes into the song, you can hear that. And then it adds to the variety within each song. There are 3 more songs on the album. The next song is called Imperial. This one begins with a Spanish guitar intro played on the acoustic. The band takes the same melody, continues with their signature brand of tech death. The song features lots of examples of extreme metal and deep guttural vocals, lots of guitar riffs that remind me of progressive death metal. They were very melodic alongside the extreme metal. After this, it goes into some classic tech death with thrashy rhythms and complicated riffs. Second to last song is Wake Circling Above, sounded more like atmospheric black metal due to its much more dense sound. There were also sections with clean guitars and some dark and evil vocals. The song stood out amongst the others. The bass guitar could be heard. It was also the second song on the album, featured a clean vocal chorus. It was pretty well done. The song features some guitar riffs that were closer to thrash, but used more as a transition between the atmospheric first part and the more technical death metal section in the second part. I also heard some guitar riffs that sound a little chunkier, and there was some really cool trade-offs with the leads and harmonies. The last song on the album was called Scythe. This was another song that had a softer intro with some clean vocals, and that reminded me of the band Opeth. The instrumental section behind the clean vocals sounded more like atmospheric black metal. After about 1.5 minutes, the band starts to transition into their signature style of extreme metal. The song also included their trademark tech death style with intense drums and guitars and gallops and blast beats, followed by machine gun riffs on top of groove and a shredding solo. Then the song ends abruptly, which makes you wonder if there's something more, but you realize it's all over. In conclusion, I think the main thing to consider is that this is an album that's very consistent with no filler tracks. However, it's definitely geared towards listeners who are already accustomed to extreme metal. For example, the album I reviewed before this was by the UK death metal band Benediction. In that review, I mentioned it was a good album for people who enjoy metal but prefer something that isn't too technical or extreme. Benediction's music is a bit more straightforward and easier to get into. This new album, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. You really need to enjoy metal at its most complex. Expect technical playing, intricate song structures, and a sound that may take a few listens to fully appreciate. The album features mostly harsh vocals, although there are some clean ones and softer sections, and that helps break things up and keep it interesting. Still, if you're not already into extreme metal, this might be a tough one to get into. For me personally, as I've been diving more into extreme genres lately, I ended up enjoying this album quite a bit. It took a couple of listens to fully click with me, but I'd say it's a solid release overall. I'm giving it a score of an 8 out of 10. It's a strong pick for anyone who loves their metal on the heavier and more complex side. Since I just mentioned that benediction review, I will stick that right here if you want to check it out next. It's a very different type of band and it might be a cool contrast. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. It really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more rock and metal reviews. And I do rankings and other stuff. Thanks again. I will see you in the next one.